The trenches were like a tomb. Walls of mud stretched high, suffocating the sky above. The faint light of dawn barely penetrated the mire, casting long shadows over the bodies of the fallen. May the Meta Christ be with them. Mud caked my boots, my hands, even the inside of my helmet. Every step felt heavier, each moment slower, and still the rain fell, a cold, unrelenting baptism that mingled with the blood and filth. I clutched the small bronze icon hanging from my neck, running a thumb over its worn surface. It depicted Saint Macarius of the Sword, the patron of endurance and vigilance. Around me, the trench bustled with life, men cleaning their weapons, sharpening bayonets, murmuring quiet prayers. The litany of preparation was as sacred as the litanies of the divine liturgy back home in New Antioch. "Abel," said Levrin, my companion in arms. He sat on an overturned ammo crate, meticulously oiling his rifle. "Are you praying, or are you just staring at that icon like a fool?" "A fool can pray," I said, offering a faint smile. "And God listens even to fools." Levrin chuckled. "Perhaps, but fools rarely hold the line. That's our task, brother. Not to seek miracles, but to be them." I nodded, though his words gave me little comfort. The cursed heretics didn't respect miracles or faith. They worshipped a twisted pantheon, their allegiance sworn to the great heresy that had turned half the world into ash and ruin. They mocked the divine with their existence, and every battle against them felt like fighting against shadows given form, shadows that whispered back. The trench fell silent as the first low whine of artillery filled the air. Everyone froze, their movements suspended. Then came the impact, a deafening explosion that shook the ground and sent clods of mud flying. Another shell fell, then another, until the bombardment became a steady rhythm. Men dove for cover, clutching their helmets and murmuring prayers. I pressed myself against the trench wall, gripping my rifle tightly. "Saint Macarius, grant us strength," I whispered. Levrin was beside me, his rifle slung across his back. His voice was calm, almost serene. "Strength is not given, Abel. It's forged in an act of service." "You sound like the chaplain there." "I'll take that as a compliment." "It was most of it." The shelling continued for what felt like hours, though it was likely only minutes. When it stopped, the silence was almost worse than the noise. The only sound was the distant patter of rain and the groans of the wounded. "They're coming," Levrin said, standing and checking his rifle. "How can you tell?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because they're always coming." I climbed up to the firing step and peered over the trench wall. In the distance I could see them, the twisted forms of the ardent blight. Cursed heretics have been pressing this sector for months. They moved like a tide, their armour warped and jagged, their banners depicting unholy sigils that seemed to writhe and shift in the dim light. Their leader was at the front, a hulking figure clad in blackened plate, a halo of green fire encircling his head. The men around me muttered prayers and crossed themselves. "Cursed bastards," I whispered, raising my rifle. The order came down the line. Hold the line, for New Antioch and Christendom. The battlefield erupted in fire and fury. Rifles spat sanctified rounds, slicing through the rain and finding their marks in the oncoming horde. Load a cartridge, cock the lever, aim and fire by pulling the trigger steadily. Pull up and back the lever, eject the casing, now down and fire, again and again. Bang, click, sweep, push, bang. The heretics fell, but for everyone that dropped, 2 more took their place. They charged without fear, their chants growing louder as they drew closer. "Steady," Levrin shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Aim true, make every shot count." I fired, my heart hammering in my chest. My shots found their marks, but the heretics didn't flinch. They climbed over their own dead, their blades glinting in the faint light. One of them leapt into the trench, his axe raised high. I barely had time to react, raising my rifle and firing point blank. The shot tore through his chest and he fell back into the mud. Levrin was beside me, his movements precise and deliberate. He fought like a man possessed, not by rage, but by purpose. Each swing of his bayonet, each shot from his rifle was an act of faith. "They're breaking through the left flank," someone shouted. "Not today," Levrin growled, grabbing a grenade and hurling it toward the breach. The explosion sent a spray of mud and limbs into the air. The battle reached its peak when the warband's leader entered the fray. He was a towering figure, his armour etched with blasphemous symbols that glowed with an unnatural light. He carried a massive war axe, its blade crackling with green energy. "Abel," Levrin said, his voice low, "stay behind me." I nodded, though fear gripped me. The leader moved with terrifying speed, his axe cleaving through men as though they were paper. He bellowed a challenge, his voice reverberating through the trench. "Lambs of the false god!" he roared. "Your wall will fall, your faith will shatter!" Levrin stepped forward, his rifle raised. "We're not here to be lectured by trash from the abyss." The leader laughed, a guttural sound that made my skin crawl. "Come then, little insect, show me your faith." Levrin fired, but the heretic batted the shots away with his axe. The two clashed, the sound of steel on steel ringing out. I watched in horror as Levrin fought, his movements precise but desperate. "Abel," he shouted. "The icon, throw it to me." I hesitated, clutching the small bronze figure. It was my last tie to home, to my family, but Levrin's voice broke through my fear. "Now, Abel." I tore the icon from my neck and threw it. Levrin caught it, pressing it to the blade of his bayonet. The icon seemed to glow faintly, and with a final, defiant roar, he plunged the weapon into the heretic's chest. The leader staggered, his green flames flickering. "Impossible," he muttered, before collapsing into the mud. By the time the sun rose, the battlefield was quiet. The heretics had been repelled, their bodies lying in heaps across the trench line. I sat beside Levrin, my hands trembling. "We did it," I said, though the words felt hollow. Levrin held up the icon, now blackened and cracked. "It wasn't us, it was him." I nodded, though my heart still felt heavy. The wall had held, but the cost was steep. Half our unit was gone and the warband would return. They always did. As the sun climbed higher, casting its light over the carnage, I clutched my rifle and whispered a prayer. For the fallen, for the living, for New Antioch. We were the shield of the iron wall, and for now the wall still stood. But deep down, I knew this war would never end. Not until the heretics were ashes, or we were.